Yes, Hare Krishna, can you hear me? Am I audible? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, just a minute. Let me. Yes. Okay, Ninda, what is the page number? Okay, wait, please wait. 123. Okay, let me share the screen. Okay. Okay. Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Shri Gurun Vaiṣṇava Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganata Gunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijanasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sadanalita Shri Vishakamitam Cha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauranga Charme Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Desha Tarine. Okay, I think I read through Vishwanath commentary on 9 point Bhagavad Gita 9.30 and 31. So now let's go through this. I think 9.31 also I brought up Vaiṣṇava-bhakti. I think so. I don't remember. In case I didn't, please do let me know. Otherwise, I just assume that I've explained Vaiṣṇava-bhakti's commentary on Bhagavad Gita 9.31 and just read out Prabhupada. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma Shashvat Shantim Nigacchati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhaktah Pranashyati. Meaning, very soon he becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare, my devotee never perishes. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. This should not be misunderstood. In the 7th chapter, the Lord says that one who is engaged in mischievous activity cannot become a devotee of the Lord. Why does he say? Okay, I'll show you where he says. First. 7.28. Yesham Pantagatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmanam Te Dvantva Mohanirmukta Bhajante Mam Dridha Vratta. Meaning, but those those persons whose previous activities were pious and whose sins are completely eradicated and who are free from the delusion of duality, and they engage in devotional service to me with determination. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are free from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. One who is not a devotee of the Lord has no good qualifications whatsoever. That is a statement from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahat guna maha what does it go? Manorathena sati dhavatopati. That also Prabhupada already quoted in his Bhagavad Gita purport earlier on. The question remains then, how can a person engage in abominable activities either by accident or by intention be a pure devotee? This question may justly be raised. The miscreants, as stated in the 7th chapter, who never come to the devotion service of the Lord, have no good qualifications, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The miscreants. Miscreant refers to dushkritinaha. Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhama maya pahritagyana asuram bhavamashrita. So they never surrender unto the Supreme Lord, they never engage in devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. So they keep themselves very far from Krishna. Generally, a devotee who is engaged in the 9 kinds of devotional activities is engaged in the process of cleansing all material contamination from the heart. He puts the Supreme Personality of God within his heart, and all sinful contaminations are naturally washed away. Naturally. Because Krishna is all good absolute. There's no sin or adharma in Krishna. He is absolutely pure. So when we come in contact with Krishna in reality, then we also become pure. Just like if I place an object under the sunlight, then the heat of the sun will get reflected in this. A certain amount of heat will be absorbed by that object. So that object will also become hot, a little bit. According to the Vedas, there's a certain regulation that if one falls down from his exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic processes to purify himself. But here, there is no such condition because the purifying process is already there in the heart of the devotee. He is keeping Lord Krishna's lotus feet in his heart. So automatically he is becoming pure. Due to his remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare should be continued without stoppage. Without stopping. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. This will protect a devotee from all accidental fall downs. He will thus remain perpetually free from all material contamination. Nāmāśraya-bhakti Nāmānyeva Harantyakam. So when one continuously chants the holy names with the right attitude and avoids further offenses and sinful activities, then he will become pure. Now here, this statement here, from here, generally, that sentence and the next sentence, that is actually a paraphrase of this verse, which is quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 2.144. Supada moolam bhajatah priyasya chaitanya bhavasya harih paresha. Vikarma yachot patitam kathanchit dhunoti sarvam hridisannivishta. I'll just read out the translation. One who has given up everything and taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, the Supreme Person, lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very dear to Krishna. If he is involved in some sinful activity by accident, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated within everyone's heart, removes his sins without difficulty. Let me go back. For a person who is engaged in worshipping the lotus feet of Krishna, the shelter of the devotees, and we're talking about a devotee who is very dear to Krishna, so dear that he has given up his disposition or inclination for others. So he is not devoted to himself or anyone else other than Lord Krishna. For such a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Lord, he enters into his heart and removes every sinful activity, reactions to sinful activities that have somehow occurred. Somehow occurred means The reactions have come about because he has somehow engaged in sinful activities. Somehow indicates that it is not part of his life. He has accidentally engaged in them, but he is greatly repentant. So because Lord Hari is the Supreme Lord, he has the capacity and ability to purify that person from the reactions to these sinful activities. Section 24, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela 1.59. Tato dussangam utsritya satsu sajjeta buddhiman santa eva sichindanti mano vyasangam ukti bhidi. Therefore, in giving up bad association, one should associate with the devotees if he is an intelligent person. The devotees certainly cut off one's opposing attachments by their instructions. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with the devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. Association gives rise to convictions, beliefs, faith. I associate with people who are skeptical about spirituality, religious processes, or Krishna consciousness. Then I will develop their convictions. Faith comes from association. So if I associate submissive association, we are not talking of just any type of association. Submissive association. So if we submissively associate with faithful persons, that means the devotees, then that will cause us to engage in various activities which will lead to cutting the knot that binds us to activities unfavorable to devotion. So this verse, which appears in Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken by Lord Krishna to Uddhava in the text known as the Uddhava Gita. The discussion relates to the story of Pururava and the heavenly courtesan Urvashi. When Urvashi left Pururava, he was deeply affected by the separation and had to learn to overcome his grief. It is indicated that to learn the transcendental science, it is imperative to avoid the company of undesirable persons and always seek the company of saints and sages who are able to impart lessons of transcendental knowledge. Elsewhere, Prabhupada writes, this is the reason why Prabhupada created his centers. He created these centers so that those who are very serious about Krishna consciousness can give up all other activities and join these centers and take to full-time engagement in 9 types of devotional service and associate with those who are more advanced in Krishna consciousness and easily make progress. If I even physically have to be dependent on non-devotees who don't have faith in Krishna consciousness and so on, if I'm financially dependent on them, then naturally I will be obliged to mix with them. And it will become even more difficult when they start passing remarks on different aspects of Krishna consciousness. And we'll be stuck and our faith will be affected over the days, weeks, months, years, decades. This is why Prabhupada set up ISKCON centers. The basic idea is we need to, those who are like-minded should be able to physically even gather themselves around Krishna and receive Krishna's mercy by executing devotional service, by isolating and protecting themselves from non-devotee association. It is imperative. Without that, you cannot proceed. I cannot make spiritual progress if I also engage in asat sangha. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has defined a Vaishnava as a person who avoids asat. Asat sangha tyage Vaishnavacha. His Lord Chaitanya's explanation of Vaishnava etiquette is complete in one verse. Asat sangha tyage Vaishnavacha. Sri Sangi ek asadhu Krishna abhakta are. Those who associate with women and those who are non-devotees, they are asat. And we should avoid them. That's all. That's all. The entire Vaishnava etiquette is comprised inside that. The potent words of such realized souls penetrate the heart thereby eradicating all. And for women, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, for women, it means Purusha Sangha, to associate. Of course, this also includes, not just heterosexual sexual activity, heterosexual activities, but even homosexual activity, any other type of sexual activity, all just thrown out in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's scheme. Because I cannot make spiritual progress as long as I engage in forbidden activities. And even activities which are allowed, like marriage, for instance, we have to engage in these allowances with great care. With great care. The potent words of such realized souls penetrate the heart, thereby eradicating all misgivings accumulated through years of undesirable association. For a neophyte devotee, there are two kinds of persons whose association is undesirable. Gross materialists who constantly engage in sense gratification, and unbelievers who do not serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but serve their senses and their mental whims in terms of their speculative habits. So these are skeptics. Unbelievers are skeptics. And then you have the gross materialists who just engage in sense enjoyment. Same thing. Sadhu Krishna Bhakta. Intelligent persons seeking transcendental realization should very scrupulously avoid their company. At the earliest possible opportunity, get out of that association. Not just association, means physical association, digital association, you name it. The moment I am imprisoning myself by associating with them, the more things become difficult. Okay, verses quoted, section 25, Bhagavatam 11.21.2. Sve svedhikare yanishtha saguna parikirtita viparyastu doshasya dubhayoresha nishchayah. Steadiness in one's position is declared to be actual piety, whereas deviation from one's position is considered impiety. In this way, the two are definitely ascertained. Did I work out the meaning? No, I didn't work out the meaning. Okay. Steadiness in one's own position is declared to be piety. Indeed, the opposite is impiety. This is the definite conclusion regarding the two. So what is good and what is bad? There are different levels. Steadiness in one's own position, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has elaborately explained elsewhere, refers to different levels. There is the status of the karma platform, karma bhumika, jnana platform, and there is the bhakti platform. So corresponding to one's capacity, if he is situated on the karma platform, then he should engage in activities that are appropriate for that platform. If I engage in the activities of that appropriate for that platform, then I am in good standing on that platform. If I'm engaging in activities that are not appropriate for that platform, that means I'm engaging in an activity which is meant for a person lower or meant for a person who's on a higher platform. That is inappropriate. Then that is impiety. That is actually bad. So what is good, what is bad is based on that. Just like, for instance, say there's a family, and in that family, they have 3 children. One is studying in primary school, another is studying in high school, and another is already entered the university. Now, let us say the one in university is not really studying at all, and bunking classes and going for parties and basically blowing up his education. And the one in high school is also doing something, never failing in the grades and moving on. And then the one in lower class is studying very well. So now, mommy and daddy, if they value that kind of education, they will naturally be in least anxiety about their third child, and in most anxiety about the first child, even though the first child is much more elder, because you are calculating on that particular status, is the child doing good or not? So similarly, there are different statuses. So it's not just that coming to Bhakti platform and engaging in activities which are appropriate for the karma platform or something lower than that even. That then Krishna is unhappy. Radha Madhava are definitely unhappy with that. Because there are different do's and don'ts for each platform. Section 26, Srimad Bhagavatam 3.23.55. Sango yas samsrutaya hetu asatsu bheto dhya sa eva sadhushu krito nisangatvaya kalpate. Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage. But the same type of association performed with the saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. Association, which is the cause of the cycle of birth and death, when it is executed with those engaged in sense gratification, that very same thing, when it is performed with saintly persons, even if it is done through ignorance, it leads to liberation. The association of a saintly person in any way bears the same result. For example, Lord Krishna met many kinds of living entities, and some treated him as an enemy and some treated him as an agent for sense gratification. It is generally said that the gopis were attached to Krishna for sense attractions, and yet they became first-class devotees of the Lord. Kamsa, Shishupal, Dantavakra, and other demons, however, were related to Krishna as enemies. But whether they associated with Krishna as enemies or as or for sense gratification out of fear or as pure devotees, they all got liberation. That is the result of association with the Lord. Even if one does not understand who he is, the results will have the same efficacy. Now here, of course, this is very intense association with Lord Krishna here. It's not just casual, occasional, interrupted thinking about Krishna. Association with the great saintly person also results in liberation, just as whether one goes toward fire knowingly or unknowingly, the fire will make one warm. Devahuti expressed her gratefulness, for although she wanted to associate with Karda Muni only for sense gratification, because he was spiritually great, she was sure to be liberated by his benediction. This is spoken by Devahuti Devi to Karda Muni. Okay, then chapter 2. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.44 to 45 on 3 kinds of devotees. So we'll only look at the verses with synonyms and translations. The verses quoted in sections 8, 9, and 10 occur within this larger section of verses in Srimad Bhagavatam that shed more light on the context. Of particular interest are a number of verses further clarifying the nature of a first-class Vaishnava here. Shri Rajo Vacha. Atha Bhagavatam Brute Yad Dharmo Yadrishon Ranam Yatha Charati Yad Brute Yai Lingair Bhagavat Priyaha. Maharaj Nimi said, now please tell me in greater detail about the devotees of the Supreme Lord. What are the natural symptoms by which I can distinguish between the most advanced devotees, those on the middle level, and those who are neophytes? What are the typical religious activities of a Vaishnava? And how does he speak? Specifically, please describe those symptoms and characteristics by which Vaishnavas become dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The king spoke. Next, please tell me about the devotee of the Personality of Godhead. What are his duties? What is his nature? How does he behave among men? What does he speak? By which visible symptoms is he known as one dear to the Supreme Lord? See, Havirvacha, Sarvabhuteshu yah pashyed Bhagavat Bhavamatmanaha Bhutani Bhagavat Yesha Bhagavatottamaha. Sri Havir said, the most advanced devotee sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. Sri Havir said, the person who sees the ability to be engaged in the service of the Lord the Supreme Spirit Soul, or the transcendence beyond the material concept of life, in all objects, in matter, spirit, and combinations of matter and spirit, and who sees all beings in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the basic principle of all existence, is a person advanced in devotional service, is Bhagavata Uttama, is a first class devotee. This is a Prema Bhakta, a devotee in Prema Bhakti. Then, Ishvareta Dhatineshu Balisheshu Dushyatsu Cha Prema Maitri Kripopeksha Yahkaroti Sa Madhyamaha. An intermediate or second class devotee called Madhyamadhikari offers his love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a sincere friend to all the devotees of the Lord, shows mercy to ignorant people who are innocent, and disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A second class devotee is he who has love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, friendship for persons who have taken fully to Krishna consciousness, mercy for the neophytes or the ignorant, and negligence for those persons who are envious of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. According to Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this refers to a devotee on the platform of Bhava Bhakti, which naturally leads us to conclude that the devotee on the platform of Sadhana Bhakti is the one who is referred to in the next verse. Prema Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti. Archayameva Hareye Pujamya Shraddhaye Hate Natad Bhaktishu Chanyeshu Sabhakta Prakrita Smritaha. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general is called a Prakrita Bhakta, a materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. He who faithfully engages in worship of Lord Hari in his deity form, but not towards the devotees of Krishna or towards people in general, is called a materialistic devotee. Then there are a series of verses which again go back to the devotee, the first class devotee, the one on Prema Bhakti. Grihitva pindriyairarthan yonadveshti na hrishyati vishnor mayam idam pashyan savai bhagavatottamaha. Even while engaging his senses in contact with their objects, one who sees this whole world as the energy of Lord Vishnu is neither repelled nor elated. He is indeed the greatest among devotees. So this series of verses clarifies the meaning of the first text, which spoke about the characteristics of the first class devotee. Even though he accepts the objects of the senses with his senses, he does not hate, nor does he rejoice while dealing with the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, which is this whole material world, because this is how he sees. He sees this entire material world as the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and therefore he neither hates nor does he rejoice when the senses are dealing with the sense objects. Dehendriya pranam manodhiyam yo janmapyayak shudbhayat tarshakrichrai samsara dharmair avimuhyamana smritya harer bhagavata pradhana. Within the material world, one's material body is always subject to birth and decay. Similarly, the life air, prana, is harassed by hunger and thirst. The mind is always anxious. The intelligence hankers for that which cannot be obtained. And all of the senses are ultimately exhausted by constant struggle in the material nature. A person who is not bewildered by the inevitable miseries of material existence and who remains aloof from them, simply by remembering the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to be considered Bhagavata Pradhana, the foremost devotee of the Lord. Okay, here it is pointed out that the one who is not bewildered by the inseparable features of the body, senses, life air, mind, and intelligence, as respectively birth, diminution, hunger, fear, thirst, and the pain of exertion, which are all inseparable features of material life, because of his remembrance of Lord Hari, is considered the foremost of devotees. So these are all part and parcel of life, as it was already stated here. In other words, he's not, his affection and service to Lord Krishna, his engagement in Nāmāśraya-bhakti is not even slightly affected by the various changes experienced in material life, in external life. Na kama karma vijanam yasya chetasi sambhavaha vasudevayika nilaya savai bhagavatottamaha. One who has taken exclusive shelter of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva becomes free from fruitive activities which are based on material lust. In fact, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord is freed from even the desire to enjoy material sense gratification. Plans for enjoying sex life, social prestige, and money cannot develop within his mind. So they are not just not there, they cannot develop within his mind. Thus, he is considered Bhagavatottama, a pure devotee of the Lord on the highest platform. Now, these are all things that we can relate to. We know what is materialistic activity, fruitive work, we know lust, we know these things. We know when a person has material desires and not. So that person in whom there is not even the chance for these to arise, that person should be understood to be a first-class devotee. Okay, here. In whose mind there is never a chance to arise, chance for lust, fruitive work, or material hankerings, which are the seeds of fruitive activity, to arise. Such a person is one for whom the Supreme Lord Vasudeva is the only shelter. Such a person is a first-class devotee. Na yasya janma karma bhyam na varnashrama jati bhihi sajjate asmin naham bhavo dehe vaisa hareh priyaha. Birth in an aristocratic family and the execution of austere and pious activities certainly cause one to take pride in himself. Similarly, if one enjoys a prestigious position within society because his parents are highly respected members of the Varnashrama social system, one becomes even more infatuated with himself. But if despite these excellent material qualifications, one does not feel even a tinge of pride within himself, he is to be considered the dearmost servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He whose good birth or meritorious acts or his adherence to rules of occupational or religious duty, varna and ashrama duty of a woman, Stri Dharma, or by belonging to a certain class of society. A person who does not have any attachment in this body, with no egotistic sentiment in relation to the body, such a person is dear to Lord Hari. In other words, he has no pride of any type, even Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta, Shri, none of these, he does not have even the slightest bit of pride. Good birth, opulence, education, learning, training, beauty, charm, none of these can produce any pride in first-class devotee of Krishna. Na yasya swah para iti vikteshvatmani va bhida sarvabhuta samashanta savai bhagavatottamaha. When a devotee gives up the selfish conception by which one thinks this is my property and that is his, And when he is no longer concerned with the pleasures of his own material body or indifferent to the discomforts of others, he becomes fully peaceful and satisfied. He considers himself simply one among all the living beings who are equally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a satisfied Vaiṣṇava is considered to be at the highest standard of devotional service. He who does not have thinking in terms of duality, such as mine and someone else's in relationship to property, or in relation to his body. He who is equal to all living beings and who is peaceful is the best of devotees. Tribhuvana vibhava hetave yakuntha smritirajitaatma surajibhir vimrigya na chalati bhagavat padara vindal lavan nimishardham api yasta Vaiṣṇavāgrya. The lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are sought even by the greatest of demigods such as Brahma and Shiva, who have all accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their life and soul. A pure devotee of the Lord can never forget those lotus feet in any circumstance. He will not give up his shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord for a single moment, indeed not for half a moment, even in exchange for the benediction of ruling and enjoying the opulence of the entire universe. Such a devotee of the Lord is to be considered the best of the Vaishnavas. So he who, even for the sake of the opulences of the three worlds comprising the material universe, does not go away from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for even 1/2 of 8/45 of 1 second, or 3 times of that. That Supreme Lord, who is sought after by the demigods and others, that Supreme Lord, who is his very soul and who is unconquerable, such a person is the foremost of devotees of Lord Vishnu. So he will never give up. His remembrance of Lord Krishna is absolutely undisturbed. He will never ever give up. Never ever give up the lotus feet of Krishna for that means he will not budge away from exclusive engagement in devotion service to Lord Hari. Exclusive engagement. Exclusive engagement means he rejects all other responsibilities and he rejects everything else. Only engaged in devotion service to Krishna. Bhagavata Uru Vikramangri Shakha Nakhamani Chandrikaya Nirastitape Hridi Katham Upasidatam Punasa Prabhavati Chandra Ivoditerka Tapah. How can the fire of material suffering continue to burn the hearts of those who worship the Supreme Lord? The Lord's lotus feet have performed innumerable heroic deeds, and the beautiful nails on his toes resemble valuable jewels. The effulgence emanating from those nails resembles cooling moonshine, for it instantly relieves the suffering within the heart of the pure devotee, just as the appearance of the moon's cooling light relieves the burning heat of the sun. By the moonshine emanating from the jewel-like nails of the toes of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has performed great heroic deeds, his heart, the pain of material existence has been removed in his heart, in the heart of such a devotee. So how can that pain have its effect for those who are worshipping him like this, just as how can there be the burning heat of the sun when the moon has just risen? Visrijati hridayam nayasya sakshad dharir avashabhihito yaghaukanasha pranaya rasanaya dhritangri padma sabhavati bhagavata pradhana ukta. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the conditioned souls that if they call upon him by speaking his holy name, even unintentionally or unwillingly, the Lord is inclined to destroy innumerable sinful reactions in their hearts. Therefore, when a devotee who has taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet chants the holy name of Krishna with genuine love, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never give up the heart of such a devotee. One who has thus captured the Supreme Lord within his heart is to be known as Bhagavata Pradhana, the most exalted devotee of the Lord. He whose heart Lord Hari himself never leaves, that Lord Hari, who even if he is called accidentally, destroys heaps of sins, that Lord Hari, whose lotus feet is held by the ropes of love, such a devotee is called the foremost devotee. Srimad Bhagavatam on the true nature of Dharma. In sections 4 to 6, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had spoken about those who accept Vedic Dharma. Here is a clear definitive statement on the nature of Vedic Dharma. The 6.140. Yamaduta uchuhu. Veda pranihito dharmo yadharmas tad viparyaya vedo narayana sakshat swayambhu riti shushruma. Let me read the translation, then I'll come back to the meaning. The Yamadutas replied, that which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is religion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, and are self-born. This we have learned, with this we have heard from Yamaraj. The order carriers of Yamaraj said, indeed, religious principles are what are prescribed by the four Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. The opposite of that, meaning that which is not supported by Vedic injunctions, are what are referred to as irreligious principles. The Vedas, or books of knowledge, are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being the words of Narayana. They are self-born and self-sufficient because they have appeared only from the breath of Narayana, and they have not been learned from anyone else. We have heard this. The servants of Yamaraj replied quite properly. See, this is part of the conversation between the Vishnudutas and Yamadutas, when the Vishnudutas forcibly prevented the Yamadutas from taking the soul of Achamil along with the subtle body to hell for punishment. So at that time, the Vishnudutas, they came and told the Yamadutas, you people are breaking the law. So they asked various questions on cosmic jurisprudence, on what is appropriate, what is just, what is not just, and so on. So at that time, the Yamadutas began their reply by talking about their pramana, their evidence, their ultimate evidence, source of valid knowledge is the Vedas. They accept the Veda as their source of valid knowledge. So from here they begin. The servants of Yamaraj replied quite properly. They did not manufacture principles of religion or irreligion. Instead, they explained what they heard from the authority Yamaraj. Iti Shushruma. So first of all, they said, this is what Yamaraj has taught us. Mahajano yena gatasta pantha. One should follow the Mahajana, the authorized person. Yamaraj is one of 12 authorities. That itself will be clear. They will understand that. In Bhagavatam 6th canto itself, that will come. Therefore, the servants of Yamaraj, The Yamadutas replied with perfect clarity when they said, Shishroma, we have heard. The members of modern civilization manufacture defective religious principles through speculative concoction. Speculative concoction means they think on their own. They are skeptical, sufficiently skeptical about accepting any standard authorities. And therefore, they think because it doesn't fit my intelligence, I should be able to understand it in my own way. So they come up with their own speculation. This is what is called speculation. The reason why Prabhupada continually chastises speculation is because it is a constant process. If I don't submit to Vedic authority, if I don't submit to God's authority, to be more general, I'll definitely have hundreds of speculations on what is God and what is not God, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, and so on. This is not dharma. The members of modern civilization manufacture defective religious principles through speculative concoction. This is not dharma. They do not know what is dharma and what is adharma. Therefore, as stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, dharma prajyata kaitavotra, dharma not supported by the Vedas is rejected from Srimad Bhagavata Dharma. Bhagavata Dharma comprises only that which is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavata Dharma is sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja. One must accept the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrender to him, and whatever he says, that is dharma. Arjuna, for example, thinking that violence was adharma, was declining to fight. But Krishna urged him to fight. Arjuna abided by the orders of Krishna, and therefore he is actually a dharmi. He's a dharmic person, because the order of Krishna is dharma. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedeshya sarvai rahameva vedya. The real purpose of Veda knowledge is to know me. One who knows Krishna perfectly is liberated. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karmacha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tattva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. One who understands Krishna and abides by his order is a candidate for returning home back to Godhead. It may be concluded that dharma, religion, refers to that which is ordered in the Vedas, and adharma, irreligion, refers to that which is not supported in the Vedas. Then the next question that may arise is, so whatever God says, we will accept. Anything whimsically he says in the Vedic tradition, we will accept. So Prabhupada anticipates that and begins a discussion on that. Dharma is not actually manufactured by Narayana. So Lord Narayana or Lord Krishna does not come up with some innovative concepts on what is dharma. It's not that, it is not, in other words, Vedic dharma is not, it is not like a prophet-inspired theology. It is not that Narayana or Krishna or Ram, whatever he says, that is our religion. It is not like this. As stated in the Vedas, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nishvasitame Tad Yad Rigveda iti. The injunctions of dharma emanate from the breathing of Narayan, the supreme living entity. Narayan exists eternally and breathes eternally, and therefore dharma, the injunctions of Narayana, also exist eternally. So the four Vedas, along with the Itihasas, Puranas, all of these, all of them are co-eternal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is not that at any particular point in time, the Vedic literature, the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, and all of them were composed, and prior to that, they did not exist. Krishna is eternal. And by Krishna's will, the Vedic literature are also eternal. They are co-eternal, just like the living entities are eternal. They are co-eternal with Krishna. Just as the spiritual world is co-eternal with Krishna. Similarly, the four Vedas, the Itihasas, Puranas, all of them are co-eternal with Krishna. Sometimes they are manifested, sometimes they are unmanifested. Creation means manifestation, and dissolution means unmanifestation. That's all. But it is the same thing. Every time Ishopanishad is manifested, for instance, it will always be Ishavasyamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. It will always be like this. Now, when it comes to so this is called Shruti literature. Similarly, we have the Vedic Smriti literature, like the Itihasas, Puranas, Dharmashastras, and so on, which are fully based on the Shruti. Now, in these literature, in the Smriti literature, the wordings may be different, but the tatparya or the purport or the intended meaning is identical. It is always the same. But in the Shruti, the intended meaning is identical, and in fact, the wordings are also identical. So that is why Prabhupada is saying dharma is not actually manufactured by Narayana. It is that. That is Vedic dharma. Krishna eternally exists, and Vedic dharma, which has emanated from Lord Krishna, also eternally exists by his will. So the Vedas are therefore said to be unauthored in this sense, that at no particular point in time were they authored, prior to which they did not exist. That is not the case. The Vedas are books which literally have no beginnings. Or if you want to put it another way, you can say the eternal Vedas are eternally authored by Lord Krishna. Srila Madhvacharya, the original Acharya for those who belong to the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, says, Vedanam prathamo vakta harireva yato vibhuhu ato vishvatmaka veda ityahur vedavadina. Literally what it means is, the first propounder of the Vedas is Lord Hari, because he is omniscient. He is all-pervading authority. Therefore, the proponents of the Vedas declare that the Vedas have Vishnu as their very soul. The transcendental words of the Vedas emanated from the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Vedic principles should be understood to be Vaiṣṇava principles, because Vishnu is the origin of the Vedas. The Vedas contain nothing besides the instructions of Vishnu. And one who follows the Vedic principles is a Vaiṣṇava. That is because the Vedas they are pushing us to surrender more and more and more and more and more to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu in the sense Vishnu Tattva. Just like when you say, I put my child in a school. My child is studying, is in education. What do we actually mean? What we mean is, what we intend to say is, my child is gone through an education process which is continually upgrading that child. So from first standard, you move to second standard, third standard, fourth standard, fifth standard, like that, you're moving higher, 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 higher. If you get stuck in one place, you're considered to be a failure. So similarly, in the Vedic system, I'm supposed to move up from Tamoguna, Atharma, to Rajoguna, Karmakanda. Then I'm supposed to move up to Satoguna, Jnanakanda. Then I'm supposed to come to the transcendental platform, Bhakti Kanda. Then I'm supposed to engage in pure devotion service, Shuddha Bhakti. And then there is Shuddha Bhakti in Sadhana Bhakti stage, Shuddha Bhakti in Bhava Bhakti stage, Shuddha Bhakti in Prema Bhakti stage. So when we say he is following the Vedas, it means that he is going through the entire process, moving up. He is unidirectionally moving up. Just like when we say that I'm studying in a school, it naturally means that I'm moving up. That is the default process. The Vaishnava is not a member of a manufactured community within this material world. A Vaishnava is a real knower of the Vedas, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Vedasya sarvair ahameva vedyaha. Chapter 4, the nature of, the reason why this dharma discussion came in is because Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that even genuine Kanishta Vaishnava, he neither engages in activities of a dharma, nor does he even have a taste for a dharma. Now, then we have to know what is dharma, what is adharma, and therefore that reference was given. Okay, chapter 4, the nature of pure devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From section 8 onwards, Srila Bhaktivinoda refers to those engaged in pure devotional service to the Lord. This chapter gives detailed references specifying what it is and what it is not. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, 19.167. The very definition of pure bhakti. Anyabhilashita shunyam, jnanakarmadhyanavritam, anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttama. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monastic philosophy, and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. So that is a definition of pure devotional service. Now, if we have to scrutinize this verse, then we find this. First-class devotional service is cultivation of service in relationship to Krishna, which is favorable. That means it's favorable to Krishna. It is cultivation of service. Prabhupada often uses the expression cultivate, cultivation. Cultivate. What does cultivate mean? Cultivate means to grow something. Like you grow crops. You cultivate crops. So I'm supposed to increase. I'm supposed to increase my faith in Krishna. I'm supposed to increase my understanding of Krishna consciousness. I'm supposed to increase my desires to please Krishna. I'm supposed to increase the activities of devotional service related to Lord Krishna, which please Krishna. Increase. So that is what Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam is actually a definition of bhakti. Krishna bhakti means this. Krishna bhakti means cultivation of service in relationship to Krishna that is favorable to Krishna. But then Uttama bhakti, first class bhakti, is more than that. It is bhakti with some stars. So we'll see the first qualification is Anyabhilashita shunyam. Without desires other than those for the service of Lord Krishna. Or without material desires, such as those for meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, and addiction to intoxicants. So from this we understand that it can have two meanings. This is straight coming from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Anyabhilashita shunyam, one meaning of that is that while I execute devotional service to Lord Krishna, as presented here, I'm cultivating my service in relationship to Krishna in a manner that is favorable to Krishna. I can not have, if my devotion service is to be considered first class, then I cannot have any desire other than the desire to progress in Krishna consciousness and please Krishna. Any other desire, even if it is dharmic, within dharma or adharma, it is not acceptable. Another meaning is, without engaging in any activity which increases material desires. In other words, sinful activity. So therefore, Anyabhilashita shunyam has been explained by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in two different ways. One is you're engaged in Krishna bhakti and you have no desire for anything other than to please Krishna and progress in Krishna consciousness. That's one meaning. Another meaning is you cannot hanker for the results for anything other than what is given within Vedic Dharma. In other words, Anyabhilashita refers to adharma. Anyabhilashita shunyam also means adharma shunyam. Zero adharma. No sinful activities, no offenses. Externally. And internally, no desire for anything other than to progress in Krishna consciousness and to please Krishna. So that's an external meaning to it, that's an internal meaning to it. For adharma, Rupa Goswami gives zero, no space. And then what about dharma? Because within Vedic dharma, bhakti is a very small circle. So there's a lot of content which is covered within Vedic dharma, but which is outside of the bhakti circle. What about that? He takes it up next. Jnana karma adi anavrita. Jnana karma adi anavrita. Not covered by the knowledge of the philosophy of the monist Mayavadis not covered by fruitive activities, not covered by artificially practicing detachment by the mechanical practice of yoga, by studying the Sankhya philosophy and so on. Which means you're not letting it be covered by anything else which is allowed in Vedic Dharma. Vedic Dharma allows hundreds of things. So, not allowing any other dharmic process even. All dharmic processes are only meant to stimulate our engagement in devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, to allow any of these things to eclipse devotional service unto Krishna, that also makes it contaminated. So, in other words, I cannot be engaging in activities that please Lord Krishna, even with the desire to please Krishna. If I have desires, if I have other desires, because I may have a desire to please Krishna, but I may have other desires too. I may have desires for kama, artha, dharma, moksha. And I may be engaged in activities to please Krishna, and these activities may be pleasing to Krishna. For in Nāmāśraya-bhakti, they are all activities which please Krishna. And I may be engaged in activities of Nāmāśraya-bhakti with the desire to please Krishna also. But in addition to it, I may also be engaging in adharma, which increases my material desires. I may be engaged in meat eating, illicit sex, illicit gambling, addition to intoxicants. I may be engaged in various forms of offenses. So then again, it is impure bhakti. It is not pure bhakti. Or I may engage in Krishna bhakti, activities of Krishna bhakti, but those activities may be eclipsed by the activities of the jnana system, dharma system, yoga system, sankhya system, and so on. There are so many systems out there. So then, even then, it is not pure Krishna bhakti. So first class devotional service refers to pure devotional service. Now, what is this jnana? For this jnana here refers to knowledge of the philosophy of the monist Mayavadi. It does not refer to studies pertaining to Krishna consciousness. This is Prabhupada's own footnote, which I have brought it out here. Here, jnana does not refer to perfect knowledge in full devotional service. One has to learn the path of devotional service with full knowledge of the Vedas. Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya 1.2.12. So, jnana karma jnanavritam does not indicate that if I have to execute pure devotional service unto Krishna's lotus feet, I should start reducing my study of Krishna consciousness, because that is not included in this expression jnana. Here, jnana refers to the knowledge of the philosophy of the monist Mayavadi. It does not refer to the knowledge of the philosophy of the pure Vaishnavas. Let me just see. Already 11:35. So let me just stop with this. I'll just put a note that I'm going to resume from this purport next week. Just give me a minute. Not. The next session will begin with page 148.11. Okay, I put a note. All right. Okay, okay, 1 minute, 1 minute. How do I unmute? Participants. Okay, I figured it out. All right, questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji Dandavat. Prabhuji, we saw those 3 types of devotees in the previous chapter. So my question was this, Brahma's verse Tattenukampa, what type of devotee that would be, you think?
It certainly refers to one executing Shuddha Bhakti. So one can be a pure devotee on the sadhana stage. No? Pure sadhana bhakti is there. Pure sadhana bhakti, pure bhava bhakti, pure prema bhakti.
So it's a person in the sadhana bhakti.
It looks like. Yeah.
Okay. And one more thing, Prabhuji, there was one verse in which the translation said something like this. I think it's 11:52 probably. That the devotee in Uttam Vaisṇava, he is not concerned about discomfort of others. 11:52, I think. If you can just go back. See the translation. I remember only the translation. Yeah, he's indifferent to the discomforts of others. But we hear that a Vaishnava is actually paradukha dukhi. So why should he be like this?
No. This is completely the material pleasures of his own material body. He's indifferent to the material discomforts of others. No, that's a fact. The pure devotee is only interested in
devotee, and let's say he's suffering material body pains. John, normally we feel bad about it. I mean, we feel compassion for him.
No, that is on the mental platform. No, but those who are on the spiritual platform, they only think of how to relieve people from both material happiness and material unhappiness. But what difference it makes? What difference it makes? Whether let us say somebody wants to take drugs. Okay, let's take this. Wants to take drugs. Whether the drug is through an injection, which is painful, or whether the drug is taken orally, which is sweet, in either case it's bad. So those who are first-class devotees, they consider material happiness, material unhappiness both to be like this only. So therefore, when they want to propagate, when they want to do good to others, they want to save people both from papa and punya, which is very difficult for impure devotees to appreciate, because impure devotees want to go one at a time.
My question is like this, Prabhuji. Suppose we are devotees and we see another devotee who is suffering bodily discomfort.
Why we are not first-class devotees?
No, we are not first class. I mean, if we see another devotee suffering, how should we feel?
No, we should help each other to do everything that is required to progress in Krishna consciousness. So if my health is my obstacle in Krishna consciousness, then I should get it together to whatever extent it is possible. There is no point in having some utopian scheme to increase my longevity of my life when it is not possible. But materialistic people constantly think like that, no?
Yeah.
See, the prohibitions of the karma system are accepted in the jnana system, and the prohibitions of the karma and jnana system are accepted in the bhakti system. So just as in the jnana system, they don't let you get disoriented by material happiness, material unhappiness of others. In the bhakti system also, you are not allowed to be disoriented by this. It takes time to grasp it, because we are so terrified of something which is so absolutely transcendental. So therefore, we can go step by step. So initially, we come to the stage where we first of all avoid adharma. First consideration, zero adharma. Second consideration, not only zero adharma, we also get rid of all unnecessary engagements within Vedic Dharma itself. Materialistic. There are hundreds of things within the Karma Kanda scheme, within Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Sri Dharma, hundreds of things which entangle us. But that is later. Before we come to the point of Sarva Dharman Parityajya, first of all, Sarva Adharman Parityajya. So after getting rid of adharma, then we think about all kinds of unnecessary activities within Vedic Dharma. Then afterwards, we think about how to make only Krishna happy, where we can, to such a point that we don't even want liberation. We don't even want personal liberation. That is the last stage. So when you come to the last stage, then afterwards you become entirely transcendental. So when our spiritual experience is directly given by Lord Krishna, then we think that everybody should be doing this. Why are they disorienting themselves by only thinking about how to keep my body happy, even if it is done beyond the prescribed boundaries under the heading of Yukta Vairagya. So they think like that. You can see, if you see Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and you see the writings of their predecessors also, well, so they have assumed such a strong position, but that is directly in line with Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam presents this. Bhagavatam is well known for presenting absolute transcendental devotional service to Lord Krishna. It doesn't mean that we are happy with others' unhappiness. Rather, it means that we are indifferent to the materialistic conception that lies behind philanthropy, altruism, and so on. Prabhupada gives a simple example. No, there is no point in trying to save the clothes only of a drowning man. So Prabhupada, what he intends to say is, we should save the drowning man. Now, when we save the drowning man, we obviously want to save his clothes too. That is there. So like Prabhupada himself, he said, let the whole world come. We will feed all of them Krishna Prasadam. But you come. First you come. Come, take darshan of the deities. Chant Hare Krishna. And along with that, it is worth giving them material facilities and all that. But if they don't want to do those things and they simply want material happiness, what is that? How is that going to help? So that kind of material altruism is brought under very severe criticism. Because that is the sort of altruism which is averse to one's own self-interest. So it requires some careful thought. Okay, let me see. Here is another question. Right now we are at Impure Bhakti platform only, but trying to practice sadhana bhakti. As Mahaprabhu's injunction is, Grihe Dhako, Vane Dhako, is for people like us who are not full-time doing job, not 24 hours engaged in 9 limbs. So people like us will rise to the platform of Anyavayashita Shunyam by staying in our current situation by following sadhana practices? Question mark. Yes, certainly. We just need to follow Lord Chaitanya's injunctions. Lord Chaitanya's injunctions are applicable in a slightly different manner for householders, grihasthas, and grihatyagis. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has carefully demonstrated that. So if we follow, then the same thing. It's only a different infrastructure. The way they have presented, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they have presented, it's just two different infrastructures. That's all. Because the mind gets disturbed when I see how I should be and how I currently am, so trying to clarify. Now, it's very important that our mind must get disturbed about these things, because unless we become disturbed and become sufficiently self-critical, we will never ever have an impetus to progress in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we'll think that I'm in some kind of autopilot mode, and whatever I'm doing, and when I die, after that, I'm going back to God and Hari Bol. This is some kind of self-delusion that we are constantly have a tendency to promote within ourselves. It's just delusion. It takes you nowhere. So basically, the sadhana practice will help me to come to the pure bhakti platform while practicing and staying in my current situation? Question mark. Yes. If I follow, you follow, and everybody else follows Rupa Goswami's instructions. Upadeshamrita is there. We have the shloka, we have the word meanings, we have the translation, we have Prabhupada's purpose. Read through it and we start following it step by step, one verse at a time. Take the first verse as the first step. Then let us take the second verse as second step. First step, second step, third step, fourth step. Progress without regress. Each additional stage becomes an add-on. Not that when I come to the second step, I stop following the instructions pertaining to the first step. But as we start progressing, then then we are able to progress in chanting. We are able to progress in our studies of Krishna consciousness. We are able to also preach better. The quality of our preaching also is higher. In that way, we are able to experience spiritual progress as we go through it. So from Tamasic Bhakti Yoga, we come to Rajasic Bhakti Yoga, to Sattvic Bhakti Yoga, to Shuddha Bhakti Yoga, at the sadhana plane, then bhava plane, then prema plane. You can work it out. But we need to agree to make spiritual progress. That's all. It's only a different infrastructure, because one can be a grihastha or a grihameti. And similarly, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said, see, corresponding griha is the residence for a householder. Okay, the physical structure. In Varnashrama Dharma, there is a facility for non-grihasthas, for brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis, and that is called a monastery, matha. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said that just as we have a grihastha and a grihamedhi, one can also have a mathastha and a mathamedhi. That is also possible. In fact, I personally think that the worst of these four is a mathamedhi. Little bit better than that is a grihamedhi. Then better than that would be grihastha. And naturally, all grihasthas, when we make spiritual progress, we all want to come to the point where we not only give up all forbidden activities, but we want that freedom to fully serve Krishna and fully help others serve Krishna. That is there, that is natural. Previously in Varnashrama Dharma, the elderly persons in Varnashrama Dharma itself, I'm not even talking of Krishna consciousness, Bhagavata Dharma. In Varnashrama Dharma itself, they gave that facility for those who have come to the Vanaprastha platform. Previously they would give facility for elderly men, for instance, to accept rules which more or less correspond to sannyas. They're expected to keep away from women. They're expected to keep away from all forms of sense enjoyment, even the sense enjoyment that were allowed previously in Grihastha life. They're expected to keep away from all of that. So, and they would be taken care of. So when the home itself gives you the facility to function as a quote unquote full-time devotee, then that means that entire campus of that home, that is now fully complete. But that requires very broad-minded and mature devotees to be able to provide it. Otherwise, you keep thinking that, what is the use of people who are financially unproductive? These people, they're no longer bringing money, are useless people. So then if a situation like that comes, then you have to tell them, please go and join an ISKCON temple, go. Because Prabhupada also said that our ISKCON centers, we should have facility for these elderly Vanaprastha couples, so that they can execute Krishna consciousness and make their lives perfect. But ideally speaking, that facility should be done at home itself. But I don't know how practical it is in a metropolitan city like Bombay, Chennai, where it's just a totally different world, where many things are calculated in terms of money. So I don't know how that would work out. But it's just an infrastructure, Okay, anything else? Okay, nothing else? All right. Leela Madhuri Mataji.
So what is the meaning of Matamedi and Matastha?
Well, you have a grihastha who stays in a griha, but at the same time is entirely focused on progress in pure devotion service to Krishna. Whereas a grihamedi is also attached to other aspects, is obsessed with the infrastructure itself. So if that is the distinction between a griha medhi and a grihastha, a similar phenomenon occurring amongst residents of a matha would cause them to be termed mathamedis or mathastha. Prahladananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Prabhu, just on the point about ISKCON, Prabhupada created a society where people can associate. There's this notion I hear a lot nowadays that ISKCON is supposed to be like an education institute where it's like a university. We just provide knowledge, and by and large, we can't accommodate devotees in temples. I mean, I understand, you can't accommodate the whole world into a particular real estate, but the notion is, are we just going to be an educational institute? We're just going to teach. How is that going to work? I don't know. Is it? It kind of doesn't sound right to me. How do we understand?
Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur,
yeah.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation of household life is that household life is like a school where you study, and after you study, you leave the school. So it turns out to be the exact opposite of what is being promoted nowadays, where they think that home is meant to be the home base.
Yeah.
And you go to a university and you study and you graduate and you're an alumni. So you become an ISKCON alumni, whereas Bhaktivinoda Thakur's presentation is the ashram is your home base, and you get married, which is like a university. You study, you learn over 25 years, and then you graduate as a vanaprastha, and you become an alumni. So it's the exact opposite conception.
Yeah.
Apart from that, if you examine Prabhupada's own presentation, you see Prabhupada speaks about, okay, there are different facilities Prabhupada has given for ISKCON. Temples, farm communities.
Farm communities, yeah.
If you cannot handle temple life or farm community life, Prabhupada was willing to consider. He also expected that when there's a temple, there would also be householders who would be buying houses near to the temple, even in cities. So that becomes some kind of a housing colony, temple colony, you can say. So that's another arrangement. Then what about those who cannot handle any of this? Well, he had Padayatra. If you cannot handle that also, then he had cities, like Mayapur as a city. And in Mayapur as a city, I have heard from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and later I found confirmation in Prabhupada Lilamrita also. Prabhupada actually wanted the initiated devotees of ISKCON, who were to reside in ISKCON Mayapur, to be, first of all, categorized as Brahmana devotees, Kshatriya devotees, Vaishya devotees, Shudra devotees, and they should be awarded different housing areas for them, residence areas. This was there, in what was called the master plan until Prabhupada's departure. So, because they have different values, what is acceptable for a Vaishya may not be acceptable for a Kshatriya and is highly repulsive for a Brahmana. So you need to accommodate them in different places. So Prabhupada had that arrangement. And in fact, Mayapur itself is meant to be the first ISKCON city. Prabhupada wanted 12 such cities on the planet, Mayapur being the first in different continents. So, Prabhupada really thought about all these things. He himself was a householder at one point in his life. So he definitely knows what the householders require. So he dealt with it, but without compromising the teachings of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati or Bhaktivinoda, without compromising the pathway. that we're all meant to move up until we come to the point where we become entirely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, where we don't do anything, we reject all other responsibilities, including family responsibilities, provided we are on that pure platform. But it may take a number of lifetimes for some or many, but give that pathway very clear. So it's there. It's not that Prabhupada was indifferent to it and created a very narrow, pathway. He definitely thought about all of these things. Oh, and I must say, Prabhupada also envisioned Sankirtan book parties for brahmacharis. Lots of things, he thought, and for at some point, Prabhupada spoke about for the ladies something like a nunnery. In the Christian system, they have nuns. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur created a Vishnupriya Palli, a colony for widowed ladies. When the husband dies or husband becomes a sannyasi, and the wife is in Vedic Dharma, a widow, she's expected to be celibate for the rest of her life. So he created a Vishnupriya Palli, the Vishnupriya colony, but he also shut it down when he learned of illicit relationships. So, that is also there. Prabhupada also said that even if you have nunnery and all that, the ladies should do it in such a manner that they don't depend on any man. So absolute celibacy, and on top of it, you don't depend on any man. In other words, no interaction with
opposite sex.
With the opposite sex, and in absolute celibacy. And of course, there's no place for homosexuality, this sexuality, that sexuality, and all this crap. Not there. But one may think, all of this sounds so otherworldly and so impractical in today's world. But if you carefully examine, and if you look at Lord Chaitanya's own formula, the first instruction he has in Vaiṣṇava etiquette, in fact, the only instruction on Vaiṣṇava etiquette in detail that comes out in Chaitanya Charitamrita so crisply, is that one verse. Asat sangat tyag e Vaiṣṇavacha. Sri Sangyak asadhu Krishna abhakta. But at the same time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has shown how it is possible to live within what we call in today's world congregation. How one can start off from that point, and ultimately Bhaktivinoda himself accepted the renounced daughter. Following the custom, he accepted the Babaji dress from Gauri Kishore Das Babaji. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has noted that this is to prevent devotees from developing a misconception that they can practice Krishna consciousness as a grihastha, following grihastha allowances for the rest of their life. It's like a child thinking the school is so nice, let me be in school for whole life. School is nice, you learn and then afterwards you graduate. So like that, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur specifically notes there are statements in some Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings, like he gives a sample. Jedana grihe bhajana dekhi grihete goloka bhai. In my home, when I see the performance of devotional service, I realize that my home is Goloka Vrindavan. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Bhaktivinoda did not want his followers to develop a misconception that because it's Goloka Vrindavan, why do I need to give up Goloka Vrindavan? So therefore, he himself took the step to make it clear that, look, this is all stage specific. At that stage, that is like that. But at the next stage, it is not like that. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur demonstrated it, and he prayed to Lord Jagannath, you send me somebody else who can go further, who can take your mission further. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was born, and then he showed the next step. You need to have an arrangement of matha for those within Varnashrama Dharma who have developed some renunciation, that they can give up adharma and they can give up attachment to home, but who are not on the complete transcendental platform like the 6 Goswamis, who can just live under a tree So then in Varnashrama Dharma, there's an arrangement for Grihatyagis in the form of mathas, monasteries. Now what did Prabhupada do? Is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati created a Gaudiya Matha? I will say Prabhupada created a Gaudiya Samaj. He created a Gaudiya society. Society is the big circle. It's a superset. And a monastery is a part of society. Homes, grihas are also parts of society parallel to monasteries. So those who are living in monasteries inside ISKCON, they should also think about how to come up to the higher sattvic requirements that are needed of in monasteries. I think that I often say this, that when our Grihatyagis seriously, non-duplicitously come up to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur standards, and when our Grihasthas seriously and non-duplicitously come up to Bhaktivinoda standards, then you will not have this dichotomy and this cold war between these two groups. It will go on. Everything will go on properly. It will go on properly. During Lord Chaitanya's time, some of the Lord's associates were householders and some were renunciates, and they were very friendly with each other. Very, very friendly with each other. We can see that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, Antya Leela, you can see. In Puri, right there in front of the Lord. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
All right. On Shakalpatar Vyashchita Pasanti Vyavacha, Patidanam Pavanabhyo,
Vaishnavabhyo namo.